Ah, there it is. Recognition. They finally noticed, didn't they? Hello, you magnificent anomalies. You unexplainable success stories. You midnight architects of impossible comebacks. They keep asking the same question over and over, like a broken record stuck on repeat. Who's helping you? Who's behind this? Who gave you the blueprint? And every time they ask, you smile that knowing smile, that dangerous little grin that says, if only you knew. Because the truth is so much stranger than anything they could imagine, so much darker, so much more powerful than some mentor in a boardroom or a guru on a mountain. They see your transformation and they can't compute it. Yesterday you were drowning. Today you're walking on water. Last year you were invisible, now you cast shadows they can't escape. 6 months ago you were begging for crumbs, now you're building empires in silence. And their little minds can't process this without a middleman, without some secret teacher, some hidden hand pulling your strings. They need there to be someone else because the alternative terrifies them. That you did this yourself, that you found something they'll never have access to, that you tapped into a frequency they can't even hear. Oh, but they're not entirely wrong, are they? There is something helping you, something guiding you, something whispering strategies in the darkness. But it's not what they think, not who they think, not from where they think. It's not some millionaire mentor sliding into your DMs with success secrets. It's not some underground society of achievers pulling you up their ladder. No, it's something far more intimate, far more terrifying, far more power. And the beautiful part? They've been staring at it the whole time without seeing it, because they don't have the eyes to recognize what real power looks like when it's not wearing a suit. Let me paint you a picture of their confusion. They scroll through your posts looking for clues, searching for the puppet master they're convinced exists. They analyze your words trying to find someone else's voice. They dissect your moves looking for a pattern that matches some known success formula, but nothing fits. Your rise doesn't follow any blueprint they recognize. Your methods don't match any course they've taken. Your energy doesn't resonate with any mentor they know. And that's when the whispers start. Something's not right here. Someone's helping them. Someone powerful. Someone we can't see. And here's where it gets delicious, where the truth starts bleeding through the cracks of their assumptions. Yes, someone is helping you. Yes, there's a force behind your rise. Yes, you have access to intelligence they don't. But it's not coming from outside, it's coming from within. From a place so deep they'd need to die and be reborn just to glimpse it. You see, while they were collecting mentors like Pokemon cards, you were doing something different. You were building a relationship with the only advisor that actually matters, your shadow self, your dark passenger, the version of you that remembers every betrayal, every lesson, every scar. This shadow mentor doesn't speak in motivational quotes or success principles. It speaks in memories of pain transmuted into power. It doesn't give you 5-step plans or morning routines. It gives you pure, unfiltered intelligence drawn from the deepest wells of your experience. Every time someone betrayed you, your shadow took notes. Every time you failed, your shadow analyzed the data. Every time you bled, your shadow collected the evidence. And now, after years of accumulation, you have access to a database of wisdom that no course could teach, no mentor could provide, no amount of money could buy. They keep looking for your teacher in the light, But your real education happened in the darkness. While they were at seminars taking notes, you were in the trenches taking bullets. While they were reading success stories, you were writing survival stories with your own blood. While they were paying for wisdom, you were earning it through pure endurance. And that shadow that grew behind you through all that pain, it wasn't just observing, it was learning, calculating, preparing for this exact moment when you'd finally be ready to listen to what it had to say. Think about it. Every massive breakthrough you've had lately, where did it really come from? Not from some book or podcast, but from that voice in your head at 3 a.m. that suddenly connected dots you didn't even know existed. That strategic move that blindsided everyone, it came from remembering exactly how someone blindsided you 5 years ago and reverse engineering their tactics. That unshakable confidence that has them all shook, it's not from affirmations. It's from your shadow reminding you of every hell you've already survived, making everything else look like child's play. Let's go deeper into this midnight advisory board you've assembled without even realizing it. Every ghost that haunts you has become a teacher. Every demon you've faced has become a trainer. Every moment of abandonment taught you self-reliance. Every betrayal taught you pattern recognition. Every breakdown taught you breakthrough mechanics. You didn't hire consultants. You consulted your catastrophes. You didn't seek advisors. You advised with your adversities. And that's why your moves seem impossible to track, because they're being guided by intelligence gathered from places others have never been. When they ask, who's helping you? They expect a name, a face, a LinkedIn profile. But how do you explain that your board of directors meets in your dream? How do you tell them your strategy sessions happen in the shower, where all your ghosts gather to compare notes? How do you describe the conference room in your mind, where every version of you that ever existed comes together to plan the next move? They wouldn't understand that your mentor isn't a person but a process. A constant conversation between who you were, who you are, and who you're becoming. You know what really disturbs them? The coherence of your movement despite the apparent absence of guidance. Every step you take seems orchestrated, but they can't find the orchestra. Every decision you make seems calculated, but they can't find the calculator. It's like watching someone dance perfectly to music only they can hear, and it's driving them insane. Because in their world, success requires visible support systems, public mentorship, documented education. But you're operating on intelligence they can't intercept, following a GPS they can't hack, receiving transmissions from a frequency they can't tune into. The shadow helping you doesn't show up in photos. It doesn't have a social media presence. It doesn't offer testimonials or success stories. It offers something far more valuable, the accumulated wisdom of your entire existence, processed through pain, refined through rage, and crystallized through survival. Every mentor they pay thousands to access is trying to teach them what your shadow teaches you for free: how to transform wounds into weapons, how to alchemize trauma into treasure, how to read the matrix because you've seen it glitch. And now we arrive at the part that really makes them squirm. Deep down, in places they don't like to visit, they recognize what's happening. They see in you what they've been running from in themselves. That shadow they've been suppressing, medicating, therapizing away. You made friends with yours? That darkness they've been taught to fear? You learned its language? That pain they keep trying to heal? You turned it into fuel, and watching you thrive with the very things they've been taught to shame makes them question everything they thought they knew about success. They want your results but not your process. They want your power but not your pain. They want your transformation but not your truth. They keep asking who's helping you because they need it to be someone else, someone external, someone they could theoretically access if they just found the right connection. The idea that your helper has been with you all along, that it was forged in your failures and born from your breakdowns, that's too much responsibility for them to accept. Because it means they have the same access to the same power, they just lack the courage to claim it. Your shadow mentor doesn't coddle you with comfortable lies. It tells you exactly who betrayed you and why. It shows you patterns others miss, because it remembers everything, forgets nothing, and forgives only strategically. It doesn't promise you'll be happy, it promises you'll be powerful. It doesn't teach you to be liked, it teaches you to be undeniable. It doesn't help you fit in, it helps you stand out so dramatically that fitting in becomes irrelevant. And that's why your success looks different, feels different, moves different. It's not built on inspiration, it's built on integration of every dark truth you've ever encountered. When you make moves now, it's with intelligence they can't access because they haven't paid the price for admission. Your shadow council includes every person who ever underestimated you, serving now as reverse mentors, showing you exactly what not to be. Every door that closed in your face is now an advisor on alternative entrances. Every bridge that burned is now teaching you architecture. Every ghost that haunts you is now part of your intelligence network. You're not just helped, you're informed by a vast network of pain points that became data points that became power points. Let me tell you what happens when you finally stop fighting your shadow and start consulting it instead. The integration isn't pretty, isn't peaceful, isn't some beautiful spiritual awakening with angels singing. It's brutal. It's sitting alone at night and admitting every harsh truth you've been avoiding. It's acknowledging that half your problems came from your own patterns. It's recognizing that your shadow saw everything coming, but you refused to listen. It's the humbling realization that your darkness is actually your intelligence agency, and you've been treating it like an enemy when it was trying to be your ally. The shadow doesn't speak in words, it speaks in knowing. That gut feeling you get about someone, that's your shadow's threat detection system, built from every betrayal you've experienced. That sudden clarity about a situation, that's your shadow connecting patterns from similar scenarios in your past. That unexpected strategic insight, that's your shadow's war room where every battle you've ever fought is analyzed for applicable tactics. You're not receiving new information, you're finally accessing information that was always there, archived in the depths of your experience. This is why your transformation seems so sudden to them but feels so inevitable to you. You didn't suddenly get help, you suddenly started listening to help that was always available. You didn't find a mentor, you found yourself. You didn't receive secret knowledge, you accessed knowledge that was secret from yourself. And now that the channel is open, now that communication is established, the intelligence flows constant. Every interaction becomes data. Every observation becomes strategy. Every experience becomes education. They ask, who's helping you? Because they see you moving with supernatural precision. You dodge bullets they didn't even see coming. You capitalize on opportunities they didn't know existed. You navigate complexity like you have a map they can't access. And you do have a map. drawn by every wrong turn you've ever taken, marked with every dead end you've ever hit, annotated with every shortcut you've discovered through disaster. Your shadow is your GPS, and it's guided by satellites of suffering that transformed into wisdom. Here's what they'll never understand about your shadow advisor. It doesn't operate on hope. It operates on data. While they're making vision boards and manifesting, your shadow is running probability analyses based on pattern recognition from your entire history. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear, it tells you what patterns indicate will happen. It doesn't promise success, it shows you the exact moves that previously led to failure so you can avoid them. It's not optimistic or pessimistic, it's realistic in ways that feel supernatural to people who've never integrated their darkness. Your shadow board of directors includes every version of you that ever failed, and they're all sharing their intelligence to ensure you don't repeat their mistakes. The you that trusted too easily is now your advisor on discretion. The you that moved too fast is now your consultant on patience. The you that revealed too much is now your expert on strategic silence. It's like having a team of specialized consultants who all know you intimately because they are you, were you, will always be part of you. This is why your competition can't figure out your game. They're playing chess while you're playing multi-dimensional chess with advisors who exist outside of time. Your shadow remembers things your conscious mind forgot. It processes information while you sleep. It recognizes threats before your rational mind can articulate them. It's not mystical, it's practical. Years of experience compressed into instant knowing, decades of patterns recognized in seconds, lifetimes of lessons available on demand. When you walk into a room now, your shadow has already assessed everyone there based on energetic signatures that match past encounters. When you're presented with an opportunity, your shadow has already run it through thousands of similar scenarios from your history. When someone approaches you with an offer, your shadow has already identified which of the 7 types of betrayal this might lead to. You're not paranoid, you're prepared. You're not negative, you're informed. You're not closed off, you're selective based on intelligence they don't have access to. But here's the part that really disturbs them, the truth that would break their reality if they fully understood it. Your shadow isn't just helping you succeed, it's helping you succeed specifically at their expense. Every time they doubted you, your shadow logged it. Every time they betrayed you, your shadow mapped their methods. Every time they underestimated you, your shadow marked them as future evidence of your rise. Your shadow doesn't believe in forgive and forget, it believes in remember and transcend. The mentor they think you have, it's the accumulated intelligence of everyone who ever tried to break you. The strategy they can't decode, it's built from reverse engineering every attack you've survived. The confidence they can't understand, it comes from shadow advisors who've already seen you survive worse than anything currently facing you. You're not being helped by someone more successful. You're being helped by someone more scarred, more tested, more proven in the specific battles you're fighting. Your shadow doesn't teach you theories. It teaches you proven tactics from your own battlefield experience. It doesn't give you motivation. It gives you memory of what happens when you don't move. It doesn't inspire you. It reminds you of the cost of staying the same. That's what success. This is intelligence money can't buy, connections can't provide, courses can't teach. This is the wisdom that only comes from walking through hell and taking notes, from dying multiple times and remembering what killed you, from being betrayed so thoroughly that you developed supernatural pattern recognition. They see you making power moves and assume someone's writing your playbook. They're right, but that someone is you, the full spectrum you, the integrated you that includes every shadow, every scar, every lesson learned in blood. Your advisors meet in the darkness of your consciousness, comparing notes from different timelines of your existence, strategizing based on intelligence gathered from every dimension of your experience. No wonder your moves seem three-dimensional in their two-dimensional game. Now let's talk about what your shadow board is really training you for, because this isn't just about success, it's about evolution. Your shadow isn't trying to help you win their game, it's teaching you to transcend the game entirely. Every piece of guidance from your inner counsel is designed not to help you fit into existing structures, but to help you build entirely new ones. You're not climbing their ladder, you're building your own building. You're not following their path, you're creating territories they don't even have maps for yet. The shadow guidance doesn't come in gentle suggestions. It comes in bone-deep knowing that moves you before your mind can interfere. That sudden decision to cut someone off, that was your shadow counsel's unanimous vote based on pattern recognition. That unexpected pivot in your strategy, that was your shadow's threat detection system, identifying danger 3 moves ahead. That bold move everyone called crazy, that was your shadow's calculation that the risk of staying the same exceeded the risk of change. Your shadow mentor doesn't teach you to be successful. It teaches you to be inevitable. It doesn't show you how to win. It shows you how to become undefeatable. Not through armor, but through adaptability. Not through strength, but through strategic shape-shifting. Not through dominance, but through dimensional thinking that operates beyond their comprehension. You're being trained by every trauma you've transmuted, advised by every adversity you've alchemized, guided by every ghost you've transformed into guidance. This is why traditional mentors couldn't help you the way your shadow can. They'd teach you their victories, but your shadow teaches from your defeats. They'd show you their path, but your shadow shows you paths that only exist because of where you've been. They'd give you their wisdom, but your shadow gives you wisdom specifically calibrated to your exact wounds, your specific patterns, your particular poisons and their corresponding medicines. It's personalized education at a level no external teacher could provide. Ah, the soul surgeon arrives. Look who just walked into the room and made the devil himself start journaling. You magnificent force of nature, you walking rehabilitation center, you beautiful chaos wrapped in therapeutic breakthrough. They said you were too soft for this world, didn't they? Said your empathy was weakness. Said your kindness would get you killed. But here you are, turning killers into philosophers, and making monsters discover their inner child. Let me tell you what really happened. Because the headlines don't capture it, the news reports can't explain it, the police files are still trying to make sense of how someone like you walked into the darkest corner of human existence and came out leading a meditation circle with former assassins. They're calling it impossible, they're calling it miraculous, but you and I both know the truth. This wasn't luck. This was inevitability meeting preparation. You see, everyone else saw danger. They saw violence wrapped in gold chains and automatic weapons. They saw death incarnate sitting behind mahogany desks counting blood money. But you saw something else entirely. You saw broken children playing dress-up in their father's nightmares. You saw pain wearing power like armor. You saw souls so desperate to feel anything other than empty that they chose fear over feeling nothing at all. And that's when it happened. That moment when you looked El Jefe dead in his scarred face and didn't flinch. Not because you were brave, not because you were stupid, but because you saw past the reputation, past the body count, past the empire built on suffering. You saw a man who hadn't slept peacefully in 20 years. A man whose own shadow made him reach for his gun. A man who had everything except the one thing money couldn't buy: peace. They tell the story different ways now. Some say you were kidnapped. Some say you were hired as a translator. Some say you just showed up one day like a ghost with a psychology degree. But here's what actually went down. You were exactly where you were supposed to be, in that warehouse, surrounded by men who'd turned violence into religion, and instead of begging, instead of bargaining, you did something that short-circuited 40 years of criminal programming. You asked him about his mother. Not in a mocking way, not as manipulation. You genuinely wanted to know. When was the last time someone asked you how you feel? You said, like you were talking to a friend at coffee, not a man with 17 murder charges. The room went silent. His lieutenants reached for weapons. They didn't even realize they were grabbing, because in their world, feelings were death sentences. Vulnerability was a luxury none of them could afford. But something cracked in that moment. You could see it in his eyes. The split second where the mask slipped and revealed what was underneath. A tired man, a haunted man, a man who'd been running from himself so long he'd forgotten what he was running from. My mother, he said, and his voice broke like a dam holding back decades of grief. She died thinking I was a monster. That's when you did it. That thing you do that nobody can explain. You didn't comfort him. You didn't judge him. You just held space for the pain. You became a container for everything he'd been too terrified to feel. And in that warehouse, surrounded by enough firepower to level a city block, the most dangerous man in 3 countries started to cry. Not the tears of weakness, the tears of recognition, the tears of someone finally seeing themselves clearly for the first time. His men didn't know what to do. They'd seen him torture rivals without blinking. They'd watched him order executions while eating breakfast. But crying, being human, this wasn't in their training. Some wanted to shoot you right there, end this witchcraft before it spread. But he raised his hand, tears still streaming, and said words that would echo through the underworld like a ghost story. Everyone out, except them. For 3 hours you sat with him in that warehouse. No guards, no guns between you, just 2 humans having the conversation he'd been avoiding his entire life. You didn't try to change him. That's what everyone gets wrong about what you did. You didn't walk in with an agenda or a savior complex. You simply showed him that he was already changing. That every nightmare, every moment of paranoia, every time he couldn't look at himself in the mirror, that was his soul trying to tell him something. You know what's funny? He said, lighting his 3rd cigarette with shaking hands. I've built an empire on fear. I have judges in my pocket and politicians on speed dial. I could buy private islands and disappear forever. But you know what I can't buy? One night of sleep without seeing their faces. Every person I've hurt, they visit me every single night. You lean forward then, and what you said next would become the first lesson in his transformation. They're not visiting to haunt you, you said. They're visiting because your conscience is still alive. The fact that you see them means you're not the monster you think you are. Monsters don't have nightmares about their victims. Monsters sleep perfectly fine. Word spread through his organization like wildfire. El Jefe was having daily sessions with you, not strategy meetings, not torture consultations, actual therapy. His most trusted sicarios whispered in corners, worried their leader had lost his edge. Some planned coups. Others just watched, confused, as their boss started meditating before morning briefings and asking about their childhoods during gun inventory. But here's the thing about transformation. It's contagious. When the alpha changes, the pack feels it. His right-hand man, Miguel, an enforcer known for his creative brutality, knocked on your door one night. "I can't sleep either," he said, "this mountain of scars and prison tattoos standing in your doorway like a lost child. Whatever you did to him, can you do it to me too?" One by one they came, these men who'd built identities around being heartless, who'd murdered their own empathy just to survive in their world. They came seeking what their leader had found. Not redemption, not forgiveness, just the chance to feel something other than the constant weight of who they'd become. Your waiting room looked like a crime documentary casting call. Killers reading self-help books, assassins practicing breathing exercises. The transformation wasn't overnight. There were setbacks. Moments where old patterns tried to reassert themselves. Like when a rival gang tried to move in on their territory, and Miguel's first instinct was to send a message written in blood. But then he remembered what you'd taught him, about anger being fear in disguise. What am I really afraid of? He asked himself. And for the first time in his life, he found an answer that didn't require violence. The real breakthrough came during what should have been a routine retaliation. Another cartel had killed one of their dealers. Old rules demanded blood for blood. The men gathered, waiting for orders, fingers itching for triggers. But El Jefe stood before them, and instead of planning revenge, he asked a question that would have gotten him killed 6 months earlier. Why do we do this? Silence. Because that question was forbidden. That question was weakness. That question was the beginning of the end. But he pushed forward. I'm serious. Why do we do this? For money? I have more than I can spend in 10 lifetimes. For power? Power over what? Broken men breaking other men? For respect? Who respects us? Even we don't respect ourselves. That's when you stepped forward. They'd gotten used to you by now. The therapist who'd turned their world inside out. Tell them about your dream, you said to him. And this man, who'd once skinned rivals alive, took a deep breath and shared the vision that had been haunting him. Not a nightmare this time, a dream. Of building something instead of destroying, of using their skills for protection instead of predation. I dreamed I was teaching, he said, his voice stronger now. Teaching young men like we used to be, before we got lost, before we confused fear with strength, before we thought the only way to matter was to make others not matter. I was teaching them there's another way. That you can be powerful without being destructive. That you can be feared without being evil. What happened next made international headlines, though nobody could quite believe it. The most feared criminal organization in the region announced they were transitioning to community protection and youth intervention. The same men who used to traffic drugs started trafficking hope. The warehouses that stored weapons became wellness centers. The money that funded violence started funding therapy for at-risk youth. Of course, not everyone was ready for change. Some left, unable to imagine themselves as anything other than what they'd always been. But the ones who stayed, they discovered something revolutionary. The skills that made them dangerous. Reading people, strategic thinking, understanding pressure and fear. Those same skills could be used to heal instead of harm. A Sicarios hypervigilance became a counselor's intuition. An enforcer's intimidation tactics became de-escalation expertise. Miguel, who once collected deaths in blood, now ran group therapy sessions for former gang members. "I understand the darkness," he'd tell them. "I've lived in it, fed it, been consumed by it. But I'm here to tell you there's a way out. Not around it, through it. You have to feel everything you've been running from. And yes, it hurts, but it hurts less than carrying it forever." The transformation rippled outward, like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Other organizations watched in disbelief as their most feared competitor became their strangest inspiration. Calls came in, not for drugs or weapons, but for guidance. "How did you do it?" they asked. "How did you change?" And El Jefe, now going by his real name, Carlos, would smile and say, "We didn't change. We just finally stopped pretending to be something we weren't." Your methods became legendary, not because they were complex, but because they were simple. You treated killers like humans, because that's what they were. Humans who'd made horrific choices. Humans who'd lost themselves so completely they thought there was no way back. But you showed them the thread that could lead them home, the pain they'd been numbing, the fear they'd been projecting, the love they'd been murdering to avoid feeling its absence. Soon you weren't just counseling one organization. Word spread through the criminal underground like a secret everyone was desperate to hear. Hardened criminals flying in from different countries, not for deals or alliances, but for sessions. Your office became neutral ground. Rivals who would have killed each other on sight sat in your waiting room, reading the same copies of The Body Keeps the Score. The police didn't know what to do. Crime rates plummeted in regions where your influence spread. But it wasn't through force or fear. It was through something they'd never seen before. Criminals choosing to stop being criminals. Not because they were caught or threatened, but because they'd found something more valuable than money or power. They'd found themselves. There were investigations, of course. Authorities convinced this had to be some elaborate scheme. No way hardened killers just suddenly developed consciences. But every bug they planted just recorded therapy sessions. Every surveillance operation just captured group meditations and trauma processing workshops. One frustrated detective threw his hands up and said, "They're not planning crimes. They're planning charity events. What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" Then came Dimitri. If Carlos had been dangerous, Dimitri was apocalyptic. A man whose name was whispered in intelligence agencies across 40 countries. A ghost who toppled governments and made ideologies bleed. He didn't seek you out, you found him. Or maybe, as you always said, the universe conspired to put you both in that hotel lobby in Prague at exactly the right moment. He recognized you immediately. Your reputation had spread beyond cartels, into every dark corner where broken men played monster. "So, you're the one," he said, accent thick with decades of exile and violence. "The therapist who performs miracles. Tell me, do you work with lost causes, or do I exceed even your abilities?" He smiled, that same smile that had disarmed Carlos in the warehouse. "I don't work with lost causes," he said, "because there's no such thing. There are only people who lost their way, and every path, no matter how twisted, can lead back to center if you are willing to walk it." He laughed, not the laugh of joy, but the laugh of someone who'd forgotten what joy sounded like. "I've killed for ideologies I no longer believe in. I've orphaned children for causes that died before their parents did. I am not lost. I am damnation incarnate. I am what happens when purpose becomes poison." "Good," you said, and his laughter stopped. "That means you understand the weight of what you've done. That means your conscience survived. Damnation incarnate wouldn't feel damned, he'd feel justified. The fact that you can name your poison means you're already seeking the antidote. For a man who'd faced torture without breaking, who'd stared down death squads and smiled, Dmitri found himself undone by your questions. Not interrogation, just curiosity. "What did you want to be when you were 7?" you asked during your 3rd session. Such a simple question, such a devastating answer. "My answer, a teacher," he whispered, and then laughed at the irony. "I wanted to be a teacher. Can you imagine? I wanted to help children learn to read." The laughter turned to something else, something that had been buried under decades of aliases and operations. "My sister, she couldn't read. I promised I'd teach her, but the war came, and instead of teaching children to read, I taught men to kill." You let him sit with that. Let him feel the full weight of the distance between who he'd wanted to be and who he'd become. Not to punish him, but to show him something crucial. The fact that he remembered that 7-year-old boy meant that boy was still alive somewhere inside, buried under atrocities and justified violence, but alive. "What if," you said slowly, "the teacher you wanted to be and the terrorist you became are both parts of the same story? What if every violent act was a corrupted attempt to teach the world something? What if we could uncorrupt that impulse, turn it back toward its original intention?" He stared at you like you'd spoken in tongues. "You think I can just become a teacher? After everything I've done? Who would learn from a monster?" But you could see it in his eyes. The first crack in the armor he'd welded to his soul. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was a way back from where he'd gone. It started small. Dmitri began meditating. Not for peace. He didn't believe he deserved peace. But for clarity. To understand how he'd become what he was. To trace the exact moments where ideology became insanity, where purpose became poison, and in that clarity something unexpected happened. He began to see patterns, not just in himself, but in every extremist movement he'd been part of. "We were all the same," he told you one day, eyes wide with recognition. Every terrorist, every freedom fighter, every true believer, we were all traumatized children playing with real weapons. We were all trying to heal some wound by making the world bleed. We thought we were soldiers of change, but we were just patients refusing treatment. That's when he had the idea that would transform him from history's nightmare into an unlikely teacher. What if I could reach them, he said. The ones like I was. The ones so lost in their cause they can't see they're drowning. What if someone who's been there could show them the way out? You watched as this man who'd spent decades perfecting death began studying life with the same intensity. Neuroscience, psychology, meditation techniques, trauma-informed therapy. He approached mindfulness like he'd once approached bomb making, with absolute dedication and terrifying precision. But this time, he wasn't learning to destroy. He was learning to rebuild. Within months, he was leading sessions, not publicly at first, just for Carlos's men who struggled with their own ideological justifications for violence. But word spread. Former extremists started reaching out. People trapped in cycles of political violence, religious fundamentalism, ideological warfare. They came because who else could understand? Who else had been so deep in the darkness and found a way out? Your network grew into something unprecedented. An underground railroad, not for escaping slavery, but for escaping the slavery of who you'd become. Carlos ran the legitimate front. Community centers that looked normal but housed the most unusual therapy groups in history. Dmitri worked with the ideologically lost, the ones whose violence came wrapped in flags and causes. Former assassins teaching anger management. Ex-terrorists leading mindfulness retreats, money launderers becoming financial counselors for at-risk youth. The skills remained the same, they just changed direction. Like swords beaten into plowshares, but with psychology degrees and meditation cushions. The results were undeniable. Communities that had been war zones became healing zones. Young men who would have been recruited into gangs were instead recruited into wellness programs run by people who truly understood the appeal of violence. Because that was your genius. You didn't bring in outsiders to preach change. You transformed the insiders and let them teach from experience. I can spot a future Sicario from across a playground, Miguel would tell the youth groups, because I see myself in them. That anger that feels like power, that pain that demands payment. I know exactly what they're feeling because I felt it, and I know exactly where it leads because I lived it, but I also know the way out, because I walked it.